want to move us to the issue of working with a teenager or a young person who's self-injuring or has suicidal ideation, and talking to the parents or caretakers. Big issue. I know I dealt with that a lot in my practice, and this is coming up in the Q&A several times. So how do we navigate those waters when we're working with a young person, engaging these behaviors, either suicide attempts or ideation, self-injury, and bringing in the parent, especially when the young person doesn't want their parent or caretaker involved? I'm sure you've got a lot to say about that. But for the purposes of our time here, where would you direct people? What's kind of the place we could start?
This is a topic that guys, we all wrestle with this. This is not easy. And I don't think, Jenna, I would ever submit that it's straightforward, and every case is different and unique. And I've wrestled with this mightily over the last 25 years as a counselor. I've actually done some work with our licensure board, or I was on the licensure board and I did the ethics cases. And interestingly, I write about ethics around this. And so I've actually been pulled into a really interesting case around this as well. And it's something I still struggle with. And even after this case, I still don't know that I have all the answers. So I'll just share what I think. I think that if a minor is self-injuring, or suicidal, I think that the parents the caregivers need to be pulled into that. I think that's extremely important. I know I have 2 teenagers of my own, and I would be outraged if somebody knew this and had not told me. So that invites a lot of ethics issues. So I think for sure the parents need to be involved in that. Now, I think that can be done in a really kind and compassionate way. You can work with your client to figure out how to do that in a way that they feel safe around. In terms of self-injury and the parents, again, this gets no black and white. It's really complicated. I work with the child and the parents to develop a plan with them that we're all on the same page with, that is a fit, right? So some parents are like, I want to know all the time when my kids are self-injuring. But most parents are like, when they can come to recognize it as a coping skill, they're like not necessarily wanting to know every incident. Right. So there's like just informed consent with that whole process around how to handle it. Another thing that I do, and I own that there are people who specialize in self-injury who don't necessarily do it the way or see it the way that I see it. I don't require that the cessation of self-injury be the primary treatment goal. I'm a humanist. At the end of the day, I'm a humanist. I believe in my clients' strengths and capacities. And what I find is when my clients are working on their struggles and the issues that they're struggling with, the self-injury, which I really think of it as a coping skill, generally dissipates. And that often becomes a non-issue. So I don't make that a treatment goal. Now, if I'm in a residential or hospital setting, that always has to be the treatment goal there, and I can't help that. But in outpatient counseling settings, I work with the client and the child, if it's a child, their family, to work on developing counseling goals that are the best fit. Mm-hmm. And again, some people think you should always make stopping it the focus, but I think that can be really unproductive. The Psychotherapy Network, actually, I think we can post it on John's website too. Poor John. Psychotherapy Network had this really great article. It was like 15 years ago. They published this article where a counselor therapist talked about working with a client who's self-injured. And the client, she had never experienced this before, and she had a really strong personal reaction, and she really wanted to control the client and say, this scares me. You can't do this. You need to stop this. And so she spent 2 hours working with the client around a plan so she would not do this, right? And then the client went home and she felt misunderstood, misheard. She was upset. And then she wound up self-injuring with a pineapple can lid more severely than she had done previously. And then she came in and told the counselor, and the counselor was like, wow, okay, round one, client wins, right? So I think it's really important that we don't get into power struggles with our clients. We'll never win those, and it's just not helpful and productive.
Exactly.
Just a couple of strategy things to add, because I agree with everything that Vicki said. And I think when it comes to parents and caregivers and students, we need to be really clear with students what our duties are, informed consent, right? But when it comes up, students are still going to be surprised, right? And so then we have to use one of two kinds of counseling skills. Either our really good motivational interviewing skills, right? Where we kind of help the client identify goals and then nurture the right treatment plan out of the client's goals, right? And it's a very nuanced and skill-based strategy. The other strategy is sometimes we just have to set limits. And both of these strategies are also true once we contact the parents and caregivers, because they will often not be taking this seriously either. So the second skill set is to be really direct and to say, look, here's what I need to do. And the reason I'm doing it is because I value your life. I know right now maybe you don't value your life and you don't want me to contact your parents or caregivers, but that's what I need to do. And this is my reason for it. I'm going to do it. You may hate me forever, right? So you try to do a little predicting. Now, the other issue that comes up here is safety planning, and in particular, firearms, right? And we have to talk with parents and caregivers about firearms and firearm safety. And again, our two choices are the direct approach. Let them know, here's what the research says on firearms in the home with teenagers who talk about suicide, or some really good motivational interviewing skills. And so those are our two choices strategically for talking with parents and caregivers about safety. And also, I think, with making that move to call the parents and caregivers into the room or into the discussion, even though the teenagers don't want it.
I love what John said about motivational interviewing. I think that's so key. I wrote an article about using motivational interviewing with this population that if I can, we'll share that on.
Yeah. Just know every time you bring up writing an article, people want it. So
but I think though, John, speaking to the crux of the matter, which is, you can't we know this, we're counselors, we can't make people change. We can't make people not want to self-injure or not suicide. But what we can do is help motivate them to want to make positive changes that are life-giving. And that's what we can do. And that's where I think we really put our efforts and focus on. And just being aware that we're not being personally triggered and letting our anxiety motivate us to try to control things that we can't control, because that backfires therapeutically.